As I said in the announcement time, it really is hard to believe that we are at the last Sunday in Lent. But here we are. Next Sunday, Palm Sunday, leads us into Holy Week with our Maundy, Thursday, and Good Friday services, all of which then prepare us for that beautiful, joyous Easter day. We begin our Lenten journey together this year, as always, on Ash Wednesday, where we were vividly reminded of the consequences, the wages of sin. Ashes marked in the sign of the cross on our foreheads, and words spoken, remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. And now we come to this last Sunday of Lent with another drastic reminder of death. As we hear Martha and Mary say to Jesus, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. Yet, both in the mark of the ashes and in the death of Lazarus, there is resurrection hope. The cross is our hope. And ashes, interestingly, used by ancient people for cleansing, for washing, remind us of that resurrection promise. My goodness, this story of Lazarus, unbind him and let him go. How powerful a reminder of resurrection hope that is. Actually, all of our lessons today speak to that resurrection hope. The word of the psalmist, if you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, Lord, who could stand? But there is forgiveness with you so that you may be revered. St. Paul, if the spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, he who raised Christ from the dead will give life to your mortal bodies also through his Spirit who dwells in you. And for sure, both the Old Testament passage from Ezekiel and this gospel text from John boldly speak to resurrection hope. God, speaking of the Jews in captivity in Babylon who have lost hope of ever living in freedom again, God asked Ezekiel, can these bones live? Only you know, God, Ezekiel replies. And so God goes to work. God bestows flesh and skin on those bones and breathes into them the very breath of God, and the bones live. And what's more, God tells Ezekiel, you tell my people that I am going to open their graves and bring them up from their graves. I am going to put my spirit within them. I'm going to breathe the breath of God into them, and they shall live. My goodness, here in the Old Testament, where very little of those Old Testament words speak of resurrection hope, here it is. God acts, and bones, dry bones, live. That's Jesus. In this account of the restoration of Lazarus to life that reveals to us the way in which God is acting to seal that resurrection hope. For behind and beyond the story of Lazarus is the deeper revelation of the story of the death and resurrection of Jesus, who will become, through his death and resurrection, the first fruits of the dead, thereby granting to all who believe in him not just restoration to life, but the fulfillment of the eternal promise of resurrection hope. The sure and certain hope that because Christ lives, so shall we. I am the resurrection and the life, Jesus tells Martha. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. I love this story of the restoration of Lazarus from death to life, and often have preached this text focusing just on the events of that day and that story. Jesus and his disciples across the Jordan from Bethany because the Jews had threatened to stone Jesus to death. The message from Mary and Martha urging Jesus to come because their brother Lazarus was sick. Jesus delaying that trip for 2 days. The disciples not wanting to go at all because they were afraid they'd be stoned to death as well. Their failure to hear behind the words of Jesus that his delaying and now his going were for the glory of God. Thomas's bold statement, if he's going, let us go too, so we can die with him. And then, there's that trip to the grave of Lazarus. Everyone followed. Jesus cried. The crowd's watching, I'm sure, in absolute fear, and then in amazement, as Jesus prays and commands Lazarus to come forth from that tomb where he's been for 4 days. And he does. Lazarus comes out of the tomb. Unbind him, Jesus says. Unbind him and let him go. What an amazing story of resurrection hope. What a reminder that this is exactly what Jesus did. He walked out of his grave, leaving his grave clothes behind, and freeing us from all those things that bind us, so that we might receive from God, through him, the gift of life. But this week, as I look back over our Lenten journey together, and especially as I reread the gospel text from the last couple of weeks, the woman at the well, the blind man, and now the story of Mary and Martha and Lazarus, I experienced a new insight. I found a strong theme running through all 3 events. And in all 3, those first followers of Jesus, even those close to him, like the disciples, and Mary and Martha and Lazarus, they all struggled to grasp the reality that Jesus is indeed the Messiah, the Son of God, and not the Messiah they expected, but a suffering and dying Messiah. And that belief, that trust that Jesus was indeed the Messiah did not come easy to them. Oh, the signs were there. Old Testament prophecy had identified the signs they were to look for. Jesus had told the disciples of John the Baptist, you go tell John, the blind receive their sight, and the dead are raised. But still there was that struggle, even then, as they moved from unbelief to belief. The woman at the well, as her eyes were opened, moved from seeing Jesus as a Jewish male in her territory to proclaiming him to her whole village as the Messiah. The blind man moved from seeing Jesus as a man walking by who gave sight to him to his confession, Lord, I believe. And from the story of the restoration of Lazarus from death to life, we have the earliest confession of belief in Jesus as the promised Messiah found in the New Testament. Martha says, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world. All of them, the woman at the well, the blind man, Mary, Martha, the disciples, the crowds, all by the power of the breath of God within them, moved from confusion and doubt to belief. And isn't that our journey as well? Do we not also have to come to terms with who this man Jesus is? Do we not have the same struggles these people had? Do we not fail to see? Don't we question? Don't we doubt? Sure we do. And so here's the good news in these texts before us this morning. The good news of our Lenten journey together. The promise of the resurrection hope is not dependent upon us. Let me say that one more time. The promise of the resurrection hope is not dependent upon us at all. The resurrection hope was and is totally dependent on the one who willingly went to the cross for you, for me, for the whole world. The one who was raised on the 3rd day. The one who says, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. The one whose story is being revealed in the story of Lazarus. Jesus said to the woman at the well, I am he. I am he, the one who is speaking to you. And she did. Jesus said to the blind man sitting on the side of the road, "You have seen him, and the one speaking with you is he." And the blind man believed. Jesus said to Mary and Martha, "This illness does not lead to death. Rather, it is for God's glory, so that the Son of Man may be glorified through it." And they believed. Jesus said to Lazarus, "Come out." And he did. Jesus says to us, through these waters of baptism, these waters through whom we receive the gift of the breath of life, Jesus says, "I am he, in whom your resurrection hope is seen." Can these bones live? Yes. Yes, indeed.